So today is a bit of a funny day. Oh, you see Torty stretched there. So cute. Today is my husband Thoma's birthday, and also it is the funeral of the Queen. So there's quite a big difference in the vibes going on there. But we've done a lot this weekend for his birthday already and stuff. So pretty much the only thing we're doing today is just going out to dinner. We're going to try this Canadian place we haven't been to before to have maple bacon wings. So hopefully that goes well. But I just finished reading 2 chapters in Les Miserables. We are still talking about Gavroche, and he's still alive, thankfully. Pretty much it seems like what this book is doing is it's following Gavroche walking through Paris to where the barricades are and all the action is and stuff, and basically just what he's doing while he's walking. Because the first chapter I read is him encountering these like 4 old women, just kind of gossiping, talking about themselves, whatever. He kind of pokes fun at them a bit, and that's really about it. But one of them follows him a bit afterward, and she says to him, this is on page 908, "You're nothing but somebody's bastard." "As to that," said Gavroche, "I am profoundly indifferent." And I thought that was just really funny of him to say. Like, he really doesn't give a fuck where he comes from or what his circumstances are or anything. But then he continues his walk, and he comes across the barber where he had originally found the 2 boys that happened to be his brothers, but he still doesn't know that. And the barber is like shaving some guy that used to be a general for Napoleon or whatever. And so it kind of just goes through like their conversation. Like this chapter is even called Righteous Wrath of a Barber. And it only lasts a page and a half. And Gavroche goes by and he's so annoyed that this guy had like messed with those 2 kids that he throws a rock through the window. And since they know there's fighting and stuff happening, the barber thinks it's a cannonball at first. And that's really it for that chapter. And so the next one is called The Boy Marvels at an Old Man. And this one is only like a page and a half long as well, because the next chapter of that is just called The Old Man. And so these are definitely smaller chapters. Oh wow, yeah. There's only 3 tiny chapters left until book 12. And oh god, I think that's when we're going to get to some stuff I don't like. We'll see when we get there. I don't want to think about that right now. So yeah, really not much happening here. Luckily, it seems like Gavroche is not going to die yet in this book. And then it looks like the next one we're going to something completely different, so I don't really know what's happening there. But that's really all for today. I watched a lot of the Queen's like funeral procession thing, and that was like several hours long kind of thing. Kind of did some other things while it was on. So just not really doing too much today, mainly just relaxing and recovering from the long weekend of doing things. So that's really about it for now.
That's cool. I like that. I'm watching a...
Oh. What? Tarty being cute, so I decided to film. Toma has painted so many of these minis so far. The bases are looking really cool though. Are you painting the whole thing black?
No, it's texture.
Oh, okay.
It looks crackled when it dries, and then I will prime it.
Is the other guy really black because you spray painted him?
These? Yeah.
Oh, okay. Good job. I just completed reading 3 chapters in Les Miserables, which completes that book. I thought there had only been 2 chapters left, but there was 3, and the last one was short, so I just ended up reading it as well. So these were actually kind of interesting, and Monsieur Mabeuf is a badass. Like, he's the coolest old man. So the first chapter was The Boy Marvels at an Old Man, and this is when Gavroche actually meets up with like Enjolras in his group. Gavroche notices there's like an old guy trying to keep up with them, and they're like, who is that? And this is on page 911, and it's literally, who's that? Asks Gavroche. Just an old man, said Courfeyrac. It was Monsieur Mabeuf. So the next chapter is called The Old Man, and it just says like how he ended up joining the group. And pretty much Courfeyrac recognized him from when he would go with Marius to his house kind of thing. And so he goes up to him because he's like, he knows this guy as like a really like timid old man. And so he's like, holy shit, he's gonna get shot kind of thing. So this is on the very next page. It says, Monsieur Mabeuf, you must go home. Why? There's going to be fighting. I don't mind. Saber thrusts and bullets, Monsieur Mabeuf. I don't mind. Possibly cannon fire. Very well. And where are you going? We're going to overthrow the government. Good. And so that's why he joins them. Because honestly, since he has lost pretty much everything, I think he's just looking for something to do. He just wants some excitement. But then it goes on to say, he had advanced nearly to the front of the column, his movements those of a man on the march, his eyes those of a man in a dream. And then the last chapter is called Reinforcements. And I'm actually not sure why it's called that. Basically, they end up passing where Courfeyrac's house is, and he's like, okay, I forgot some stuff, so this is perfect. I'm gonna run up to my room real quick. And he comes back down, and the concierge is like, you have a visitor. And he's like, what the fuck? Who's gonna be visiting me now? And it's someone that they describe as, at this moment, a youth who seemed to be some sort of workman, slight of figure, pale-faced and freckled, wearing a torn smock in patched velveteen trousers, looking rather like a girl dressed in man's garments, came out of the lodge and said in a voice that was not in the least like that of a woman. And then they say they're looking for Marius. And so knowing that Eponine disguises herself at some point, I think that's definitely who this is. And they make it very obvious. But Courfeyrac has no idea where the fuck Marius is right now. And he's like, I'm not even going to be back here tonight, so I can't really tell you anything about where he is. And so she's just like, well, what are you doing? I'm gonna follow you kind of thing. And so that's how she joins their group. And so she's disguised, and I assume it's on purpose to be able to join their group or whatever. But I wonder if she knows something about Cosette leaving, and maybe that's why she was looking for Marius. I don't really know. But that's really where that book ends, which brings us to book 12, which is called Corinth, and I don't know what that is, because that just makes me think of like Corinthians in the Bible. And the first chapter is called History of Corinth from its Foundation, and so I'm just really scared that we are going into a huge history part of the book again. It's like, fuck, it was getting interesting. So that's where I'll be starting tomorrow, so I'll find out really quick where that book is gonna take us. And this beast stole the laundry basket. Yes, look at your guilty face. Oh my god, what is that? What are you doing? He just keeps putting his arm through the holes. Look at that footy. Look at that big footy. Oh, oh goodness, big footy. Boop. You're so weird. So it's a few days later. I've actually been pretty busy in the house, not doing things really like outside, but we've done a lot of reorganizing like with our closet, and I've been doing a lot of stuff here in the apartment, and I also have some books that I need to read by the end of next weekend, including like a book club book and stuff. So I've been more invested in doing that than reading Les Miserables the past few days, so it's actually been a lot more busier than I was expecting, and pretty much like I get to the end of the day and it's like I still haven't read my chapter. So today I just read 3, and this book is odd. It's definitely not what I was expecting. This first chapter is called The History of Corinth from its Foundation, and I had no idea what the fuck this was talking about here, but it's actually talking about a bar, and it says it was like first built like 300 years ago, and it's still there in the story, like when that takes place in 1831 or whatever year it is. And I guess it's like one of the meeting points for like the ABC Society. At first, I really thought we were about to do like this crazy deep dive, because it even says here on page 915, it says, "For the purpose of clarity, we may revert to the method used in our account of the Battle of Waterloo." And I was like, oh, please don't bring that up again. But pretty much it just talks about how it's in a street of mazes, like it feels like a maze kind of thing. There's a lot of like thin alleys, and it looks like dead ends that actually aren't kind of thing. And this is where the barricade will actually end up being set up. So then the next chapter is called Preliminary Frolics. And pretty much the guy whose nickname is like the Eagle and another one named Jolly, they pretty much go there the morning of General Lamarck's funeral. And Grantaire shows up, and they're all just drinking with each other, and Grantaire goes on like this huge fucking rant. But this is also when I noticed that every woman that isn't Cosette is described as like the most hideous person ever. And it's so fucked up. Like, even by the characters themselves, the way they talk about women is absolutely horrible. Like Eponine, Madame Thénardier, the two waitresses that were just introduced, as well as the bar owner. Like, that's 5 women right there just off the top of my head, where they don't describe them in a good way at all. So yeah, these guys are all drinking, having a good time, whatever. And then a friend of Gavroche comes in and gives a message to them saying like ABC, and they're like, oh, Enjolras is probably signaling for us to go to him or whatever. But they're basically like, nah, we don't really want to get shot. I think it's better if we just stay here. And so they don't go to the funeral of General Lamarck, and instead choose to get like absolutely trashed, especially Grantaire. And so chapter 3 is called Darkness Gathers About Grantaire. And in this one, pretty much they hear people shouting outside, like to arms, and Enjolras, Courfeyrac, all of those people go running past, and they're like, oh shit, what's going on? And they're told that they're looking for a place to build a barricade. The Eagle guy is just like, well, why don't you do it here? And they're like, good idea. And so they're building up the barricade, and it's pretty much exactly like how you see it in the musical, like with that carriage and everything. Like, that's how it's described in the book. And like everyone, including the waitresses and the owner of the bar, are like helping out and everything. And Grantaire is just like really, really salty, and he like grabs one of the waitresses and like says some really horrible things about how she looks, and same with the owner of the pub. And like just spouting this bizarre nonsense, and Enjolras is basically like, just shut the fuck up, dude. And it like chills him to his core. It says it instantly sobers him, and I'm actually going to read a little section of it, because Grantaire is just like such a bitch for Enjolras. It's ridiculous. This is on page 929. It says, the sharp rebuke had a remarkable effect on Grantaire, as though he had received a douche of cold water. Suddenly he was sober. He sat down with his elbows on a table by the window, and looking with great sweetness at Enjolras, called back, you know, I believe in you. Go away. Let me sleep it off here. Go and sleep somewhere else, said Enjolras. But Grantaire, still regarding him with troubled, gentle eyes, persisted. Let me sleep here, and if need be, die here. Enjolras looked scornfully at him. Grantaire, you're incapable of believing or thinking or willing or living or dying. You'll see, said Grantaire gravely. You'll see. He muttered a few more unintelligible words. Then his head fell heavily on the table, and a not uncommon effect of the second stage of inebriety into which Enjolras had so harshly thrust him, fell instantly asleep. So essentially, this was pretty much just a recollection of what other members of the ABC Society were doing while the funeral and the start of the revolution was happening. There were a lot of like road names and stuff in these chapters to kind of try to pinpoint where this was. And even when Victor Hugo, God, I could not remember his name for a second, even when he wrote this, a lot of those buildings and roads no longer existed. So I'm going to see if I can find exactly like where this was supposed to be. And obviously I do have plans at some point to go there and kind of show you like, hey, this is where it is, or is in the book, I should say. So if I am able to find that, I'll pop that up here, kind of like a Google Maps thing or something, because I definitely even just want to see it for myself. Apparently it's by Le Hall. So it's very like centralized in Paris. It's like Hall is right next to Châtelet basically. But today is Saturday, so that's all for this week. We're actually really not doing too much outside this weekend. Our weather has completely shifted to like 70s and sunny to low 60s, even into the 50s and rainy for the next week. Definitely a big difference. Like I was able to wear a sweater today. But thank you for hanging out with me. It is always appreciated. And until next time, bonne journée and au revoir.